Mary! I met her at a dance. I remember she was very cold, so strangely beautiful. I swept her up to carry her home. Resurrection Mary, wander from your cemetery. Down by a speeding car. On her way to a ball, she was buried with her dancing shoes on. Resurrection Mary, wander from your cemetery.
Oh, man alive. I'm telling you, I'm still so scared by the dark. Richard Crowe, Ghost Hunter. Carol Amari, Radio Spirits. How we doing, guys?
All right, that stuff's pretty spooky.
Oh, man.
Scary, kid, scary.
I tell you, I was out of my chair. It was so scary. Other calls for you guys coming out of my ears. 591 WLUP. Let me break for a moment. We'll come back. We'll get to somebody's phone call.
Okay, everybody. It's that time of year again, so stand up. Right hands in the air and repeat after me. We. The entire population of the northern two-thirds of North America.
The entire population of the northern two-thirds of North America.
Promise to use the original 3M brand window insulator kit this fall.
Promise to use the original 3M brand window insulator kit this fall.
Because last fall, some of us bought cheap kits with cheap tape.
Because last fall, some of us bought cheap kits with cheap tape.
And some of us got drafts.
And some of us got drafts.
This fall, no more cheapies.
This fall, no more cheapies.
This fall, the original 3M window insulator kit.
This fall, the original 3M window insulator kit.
Because it really is going to be winter.
Because it really is going to be winter.
And because it really is the tape.
And because it really is the tape.
Thank you, thank you. You're beautiful.
It's 12:25 at AM 1000 WLUP. I'm Ed Schwartz with two great guests for Halloween. Richard Crowe, professional ghost hunter. 45 Midway, 47 downtown at AM 1000. Rich, a little history. Oh, by the way, we called Detroit Devil's Night, the night before Halloween in Detroit. Is often a horrible night because of an arson problem Detroit has. For years and years and years, people in Detroit have been setting fires on Devil's Night the night before. And so now the Detroit police and fire departments and the city government there is a massive campaign on Devil's Night, the night before Halloween, to patrol the streets and the alleys, to put guards on buildings, and to encourage the population to not burn Detroit down as they have in years gone by. A couple, 3 or 4 years ago, on the night before Halloween, there were 800 arsons in one night. You remember that? It was amazing.
Yeah, we used to do that all the time on the radio. It was amazing, yeah.
Do you know what the history of Devil's Night is as opposed to Halloween? Is there a separate history associated with Devil's Night?
Not really. It's a American invention. And how it caught on as a night to commit arson and burn is beyond me. Just seemed to grow out of nothing. And, of course, Detroit was really plagued by that for so many, many years.
Yeah. They're telling me to have you raise the mic up a little higher.
Okay.
Sorry about that. But we want to get your mellifluous tones on all of our 50,000 watts. Some calls for you, some calls for Carl, AM1000, 591 WLUP. Is this your second or third appearance with me on the loop?
Second. In fact, I was on your first week when you came over.
That's right.
Within your first week, and then we got busy, and of course we've always set aside. We always book Halloween a year ahead, Ed.
We always know where we're going to be.
We know where we're going to be, and
you're going to be in two places. You are on the radio and out on the tour.
You got it.
And for that, I'm very grateful. We're going to do this again because it's a new station for both of us. We're going to give you a little history. Rich is a very, very literate, bright, well-educated Chicagoan. Rich has studied the classics. He is, when last I checked, I guess your education was both of a historical nature and background. Well, I mean, when I first met Rich, he was in city planning. He really knows a lot about Chicago, which is what makes his touring so valid. When I met him, Rich was with the Department of Planning, City of Chicago, doing research. He's a co-author of a book on the ethnic history of Chicago, which I still show to people. And but he did this as a research project while an undergrad at DePaul. The ghost tour was born, and take a minute and tell that story because I think it's important.
Right, Ed, and I always give credit to my geography prof, Dr. Richard Houck at DePaul, for the whole concept. Although I was the natural person to be asked to put together a trip like that, because during my days at DePaul, I was an English lit major, geography minor, and constantly talked about ghost stories to my friends, wrote about ghost stories for the school newspaper, got into it very, very heavy. And one day, my geography prof would ask me to put together a tour meant to be a one-time trip only for the DePaul Geographical Society. Now, at DePaul, the Geographical Society would run things like waterways tours and geological formations. This would be a very special twist on that whole geographic approach, a ghostly geography. So I put together a trip meant to be a one-time tour only. It ran October 27 of 1973. And on that day, we actually turned away 200 people. And I couldn't believe the response, neither could DePaul. So what happened is I would get the mailing list. I filled up 2 more buses. I thought it would stop there, but it continued growing and growing. As you know, when you first met me, I was doing this part-time and working for the city of Chicago. But by 1979, I went full-time, and I now am the only full-time professional ghost hunter throughout the Midwest, if not more of the country. And I have a day tour by bus I offer, a night tour by bus. I do a boat cruise during the summer. I do out-of-state trips to Salem, Massachusetts, down to New Orleans. I do a lot of lecturing around. I'll be up at NIU and DeKalb here within the week. I just did St. Xavier's University recently. Constant lecturing at various theme parties that I set up at various clubs and groups. I work anywhere from the China Club and Excalibur to the university level, you name it, because the interest in ghosts, as you so well know, Eddie, your audience, the audience that calls us on these nights, is a broad audience from the youngest kids to the oldest senior citizens. It cuts across all cultures, all ages, all occupations. Everybody's got a fascination with this kind of material.
Rich has a real good understanding of urban folklore, and you'd almost have to call him a folklorist as well.
Part of my job would be folklore research, right?
Absolutely. He has traveled all over the world. We have done radio broadcasts with Rich from Ireland and Scotland and England and God knows where. He's traveled all over, looking into these things and now taking people out on tours to see them for themselves. Our phone number is 591-WLUP. When it got to be Halloween, I mean, weeks before Halloween, people started calling me asking, is the Ghost Hunter going to be on? I said, what do you mean? I said, is the sky blue? Is dirt brown? Is Daley the mayor? Of course the Ghost Hunter will be on. And here you are. Carl Amari is going to hang with us tonight, and we're going to listen to some more goodies, and we're going to hear some ghost stories from Rich. And we've got a lot of phone calls coming in. Kathy wants to update us on traffic. Being that it's a Friday night, it's busy out there, isn't it?
Oh, it's been nasty.
Yeah, it sure is. The worst of it seems to be right now the Kennedy inbound. Shadow traffic reporting your O'Hare to downtown drive time just under 40 minutes, 14 of that from Montrose. The jam-ups from Foster to Lawrence with road work in the two left lanes from Lawrence to Montrose. Outbound Kennedy is running okay despite road work Armitage to Fullerton. The Ontario feeder is closed, so you cannot access the Kennedy from Ontario Street. As for the rest of the expressways, fine. Tri-State southbound, they'll watch for a report of an accident in the roadway at the Kennedy. Apparently a car lost a wheel there. The state troopers are on their way to check things out. As for the weather overnight, variable cloudiness, low down to 38 in the suburbs, 44 lakeside. Cloudy Saturday, a 40% chance of rain later on in the day, high of 52. Saturday night, rain likely, a low down to 43. Rain likely again Sunday, high around 54 degrees. Now winds east at 7 miles an hour. Humidity 76%. It's 46 degrees at O'Hare, 45 at Midway, 47 at the Loop, AM 1000. I'm Kathy Voldmer, and this is Chicago Ed.
You know, Rich Crowe, our ghost hunter, brought you a present tonight from his Chicago Supernatural bus tour.
I did not know that.
Yeah, Rich was giving away tonight Halloween candy bars, or Halloween chocolates.
Really?
In the shape of ghosts. I've got a white chocolate lollipop for you.
Oh, that's neat.
Yes.
Thank
which,
you.
I will send over.
Wonderful.
Or I'm going to have a choice of a witch or a ghost. I like the ghost.
Ghost sounds good. I love white chocolate.
A white chocolate ghost. Okay.
Thank you, Richard.
We'll pass these out to the entire staff. And that's from the Ghost Hunter.
Wonderful.
Here we are. We've already played the Ballad of Resurrection, Mary the Hitchhiking Ghost, maybe one of the most famous. And the Ghost Hunter is here. It's 12:33. Just before we hit the phones here, Rich, Carl has something he wants to share with us in the way of a ghost story.
Richard, I really believe I saw a ghost a while ago, and I've been wanting to talk to you about this all the time that you're on, and I was waiting to talk to you in person about this. I was about 18 in my parents' house, and I was with a friend, and we were walking down my stairs, and it was dark in the basement. And I was looking up at my friend, and I was about to flick the light on, and at the bottom of the stairs was a figure, and to me, it looked like a female figure. And it was just standing, and I could see the arms, but it was all white, and inside was all of these, like, energy, almost like in Star Trek, when they're in the thing.
Right. Was it bluish?
No, it was all different colors, all running all through it. And when I saw it, my knees buckled, and I fell down the stairs. And as I was falling, I was watching it. And as soon as I got to the bottom, it just took off. It just immediately, like about 100 miles an hour, flew into the back, where it's pitch black. And I remembered so vividly. And I looked up at my friend. My friend was clutching the handles by the stairs. And I looked up, and he was just white as a ghost. And he said, and I looked at him, and he made a...
No pun intended.
Yeah, and he made a movement with his hands. He said, "Did you see that?" And he went like that with his hands in the same motion that the thing went. And we just got out of there. Called the police. I mean, you know, we didn't know what it was. But it was not human, that's for sure, whatever it was.
That only happened once?
One time. Yeah.
Uh-huh. How long did you live there in that area?
Well, that's the funny thing. See, we had that house built. It wasn't like we were the only people living in that house from the time. It was built in 1968. And this happened like about 10, 11 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And, of course, the fact that it happened to two of you would rule out any kind of,
Right, and we saw exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing.
That's an amazing story. But sometimes it is like that, just like an energy or, in fact, Ed, The reason we first did our show together, if you remember, was because of John Ziamek and the story that he did for the Sun-Times.
I picked up the newspaper, and there was a full page with photos, page 2. And there was a story of a ghost hunt up in Wisconsin. And that's when I first became familiar with all this, was the Chicago Sun-Times ran this, and it was very spooky, but they were very serious about it. And one of their reporters, John Ziamek, wrote the story. I called John. I said, I must meet the ghost hunter that you went out on this ghost hunt with. He got me together with Richard. That's right. And today John's a professor of journalism. So. But
what we had seen that night up near Bristol, Wisconsin, was somewhat similar to what you just described, except it was a shimmering type, electric type bluish field, bluish gray, but in a silhouette form, but like a shimmering type effect. That at first we suspected was just a trick of the weather, the street lights, or not the lights actually, but because we were off the road, but trick of the stars and the moon out there in the middle of nowhere up in Wisconsin. But it was somewhat similar thing to what you described there. That's what I instantly thought of like that.
Well, the only thing I could describe it as being is in Star Trek when they're about to take off, and all that energy is going through. That's exactly what it looked like. And I could see the arms and the legs and the head, and it was life-size. And I will never forget that. I mean, to this day, it's just locked there.
Right. For most people, it's a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence, so you probably won't have another one to look at again, but it's an amazing thing to see.
That's quite a story. We've got somebody calling up with a story about a Ouija board. I want to see what this is all about. This is Dan.
Yes, it is.
I know. Richard has often said people shouldn't play with Ouija boards because you might be conjuring up something you don't want.
Right.
What happened with you?
Well, like I said, and in fact, I had talked to Richard earlier this week, and 5 of us were sitting around, and my buddy says, well, you still got the Ouija board? I said, yeah, all right, we'll pull it out. And his wife was on the other side of me, and we started to play with it and started moving around. And my other friend mentioned, he said, do you have a tape recorder? I said, yeah, I got a little mini one. He said, pull it out, and let's see what happens. He says, I've heard that at times you can pick up sounds, voices, noises. So I set it up on the side next to a candle we had near the Ouija board. And it didn't take too much longer. We started to make contact. And we started asking the simple questions, yes, no, trying to get 1 tap for yes, 2 taps for no. And we were noticing the candle on certain questions started to flicker, went higher, went lower. And then I asked the board, I said, are you doing this? And the board answered yes. And I said, can you do this at will? Can you make the candle move? Again, the board went to yes. So I said, all right, can you do that for us now? Once again, the board said yes. We watched the candle, and sure enough, it went up. Well, as time went by, we asked a few more questions, no big thing, and we put the board away, and we said, well, let's listen to the tape, see if there's anything on there. Not expecting anything, really, except our voices. Rewound the tape, got to the point where I said, can you do that for us right now? And there was the voice that came on in a very guttural tone, very deep. I don't want to say man, I don't know what it was, but it said, do higher. And that was on the tape. And it just blew everybody's mind because we all stopped. I shut the tape off and we stared at one another like, did everybody hear that?
Where is this tape now?
I've got it right in my hand.
Have you guys something you can play it on?
Yeah, I've got a little mini recorder. Like I said, I don't know how well it'll come over. It's the same recorder I recorded it on.
That's important.
So
I'll put it as close to the phone as you can.
All right.
Rich, are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay, like I said, you'll hear me first, and then you'll hear the voice.
Now, you're claiming this is a ghost voice?
I'm not claiming anything. I don't know what it is. It just appeared on the tape, and I'm not sure what it is, who it is, what they're trying to contact, or what. But here goes. Can you do that for us right now?
It was very hard to discern anything.
Did it say do higher and something else after that?
It was like a sigh. Like it seemed like it was very difficult for it to, to do that. Like
do higher and or something.
Right. Yeah. Like it was, it took a lot of energy.
Exhaling, yeah.
Right.
That is very difficult to hear over the phone on the radio, though. So I think you'll send Rich a copy of that.
Yeah, I'd be glad to talk to you further about that. I appreciate you calling me about that.
We'll.
It certainly gives you a lot to think about. Huh?
It does. Like I said, we all kind of were shocked at it, and we know none of us made this noise.
Well, we've talked many times about photographs that have been offered to us, Ed, and in which things show up on film, which were not seen with the naked eye, and then they show up in the film. And the same thing happens with the audio tape, that people pick up something they don't hear at the time, but it's there on the audio tape later. That's happened before. So be glad to discuss that further with you at another time, and appreciate very much your call tonight.
Yeah, we'll be giving an address and phone number for the ghost hunter here in a few minutes. You might want to write it down, okay?
All right, I've got the number, so
okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good luck.
Unfortunately, that's very easy to fake, and I'm not saying that he faked it.
Yeah, audio tape, of course, not up there in the same league with the photographs, because obviously it takes a lot of expertise to fake a photograph, and there's usually some telltale sign. Unfortunately, with an audio tape, you've got to just know your people and know their trustworthiness here on it to make a decision, but certainly worth looking into.
Is Halloween still celebrated in Europe, or is it celebrated in Europe? Is it still the harvest time? Is it still the time as it used to be in the ancient days?
Yeah, it's still big in the old Druid parts of the world, where it actually came from originally. Of course, I have not had a chance to spend any time in Europe on Halloween because I'm too busy tied up with all the stuff I've got going around Chicago. I'd love to spend Halloween somewhere in an old Druid site somewhere sometime, but
they would be for real. I mean, their costumes would be for real, right? In other words, do people celebrate Halloween in Europe as we do, with parties and costumes and trick-or-treating and all that stuff?
The funny thing, Ed, is that ghost stories, as we do it here at Halloween all the time, a tradition here of telling ghost stories at Halloween. In England, it's pretty much a Christmas pastime, Christmas activity. And it's funny because I just had a reporter in from the News of the World in London, and he did my tour, and we went around to various sites. And I'm going to get a huge spread in the British press, not for Halloween, but for Christmas. So they look at it somewhat different in Britain.
Better than the spread you had tonight?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I say spread, I mean on the 50,000 watts that goes all over the country. That should be interesting. I want to read that when it comes in. 591 WLUP is the number. One thing we want to mention here. Rich does what he does for real, but you must, if you're out fooling around anywhere, particularly at this time of the year, you got to remember private property rights, trespassing. Rich doesn't break the law when he goes where he goes to either check things out on an investigation or on a tour. Richard does not. We've never been arrested. I know you always obey the law, and yet we are not here to encourage you to go anywhere where you don't belong. Trespassing is illegal. In today's climate, you're liable to get shot by somebody if you go where you don't belong. Whether it's a cemetery, or what you think is a haunted house or building, don't go there, right?
Absolutely, Ed. And good point. I mean, even the fact that you could get into a cemetery at night, the dangers of something like that, falling into open grave, tripping over a tombstone, scaring yourself silly and causing yourself some injury, absolutely not the thing to do. No. And you don't have to do it for this reason. If there is a site, for instance, a cemetery site that we talk about, I mean, just because you can't get there at night doesn't mean a thing, because ghosts happen all day long, daylight hours, sunset hours, doesn't make any difference. A site that is haunted, anything we talk about, anything that you want to pursue further through your historical interests or folkloric interests, you can go there any other time, and go there when it's legal, go there when it's safe and proper to visit.
Yeah. I wanted to just underscore that. It's very, very important.
Very important.
Because Richard and I both know places right now where police officers are hiding, waiting for trespassers. And I don't want to see you get arrested, so just don't go there. We have a note from the mayor's office about Halloween. I'm not surprised. Mayor Daley's office says, please remind your listeners that the city is working hard to make this a safe Halloween. In addition to a number of parties sponsored by the city of Chicago, police will have extra officers on the streets on Halloween night. The mayor asks all parents to have their young kids home by nightfall. Please observe the following do's and don'ts. Don't take unwrapped candy. Don't take fruit. Don't walk up to a dark house or through unlighted hallways. Don't wear costumes that obstruct the vision. Don't go alone. Do wear reflective clothing and do wear flame retardant costumes. Giving you a better list if I wrote it myself. I mean, obviously, every child that goes out should come home safely. All right, we've got calls for both of you gentlemen. Carl Amari, Radio Spirits, who also has an 800 phone number if you want to get some of these old shows we're playing tonight, especially the scary ones, or Rich Crowe. 591 WLUP. Someone's going to go right in order here. Hello, Larry.
Yes, Ed.
You're on the loop. Welcome.
Well, thank you, sir. I just wanted to do something lighthearted here. I wanted to thank you to play that Chicken Heart.
Ah.
And the reason I wanted to thank you for that is, because I was an aficionado of Bill Cosby's album. And he had one that I think was called Why Is There Air? And he did a skit on there where he was listening to the radio, and his dad told him not to listen to the radio. And it was the Chicken Heart story.
That's right.
And he comes in, and it was very hilarious.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that earlier.
And, I'm sorry, I missed that part. But after 20 years, it now makes a whole lot more sense.
I'm glad that you feel that way. That's good.
Keep spreading that Jello. Remember, he was saying, spread that Jello.
He ain't getting me.
All right, you keep listening. There's more coming up, all right?
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you very much for the call. Hello, Doug.
Hi, Ed. How you doing?
Right, what's up?
Oh, that second one you played it with about the dark. I remember when I was a kid, probably in the late 60s. I don't know if Wally or somebody borrowed that from me. He'd play it in the morning before we go to school.
That was Wally. Yeah, he used to do that.
And my mom, she'd listen to him religiously, and she'd, get us around the radio. So you got to listen to this. This is really scary. Wally says, it was pretty funny or good story back then. And hearing it today, I said to my wife, I remember this story. Wally used to play it on GN, and my mom would gather us around.
Everything goes around, right?
Yeah.
Good to have you listening to the Loop tonight.
Yes.
There's more coming up. Don't go away.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. AM 1000. Hello, Chris.
Hi, Ed. How you doing?
Good. Welcome to the Loop.
Good. I'd like to welcome you into the AM 1000 family.
Good to be here. I've got the address memorized.
Good, good. I had kind of a question for Richard about Ouija boards.
Sure.
Okay.
I read a book entitled Ouija, but I can't remember the author's name.
Mm-hmm.
They said something about the only way you can contact spirits through Ouija are if they are not necessarily evil, but unsettled spirits. And the only way that sometimes the spirits try to trick you into saying that they're good spirits, but they say the good spirits reach you through dreams and not through like the Ouija board. I was just wondering if you can shed some insight on backgrounds of Ouija boards and what really happens or not really happens.
Sure. The aspect of the dream thing, I think, is very true, that things can come through dreams that are much more reliable, much more stable. The problem with Ouija boards is that you can start to get information that may seem logical, may seem to make sense, and then it goes off on a tangent away from reality. And I've heard a lot of horror stories over the years. By that I mean people who are addicted to Ouija board playing, that they get into the Ouija board and they let it actually rule their life, and it's a very dangerous situation. I know the book you're talking about. I can't think of the author myself. I do have a copy of that book, and it was good to an extent. However, the best book that I could recommend on Ouija boards is one called Philip the Imaginary Ghost, and it was written by Dr. A.R.G. Owen of Canada. And the book came out sometime, I think, in the late 70s. I met Dr. Owen some years ago at a conference. He's a very, very interesting man. And the work that Owen did, which I think is extremely valuable, was setting up a fictitious biography of a character, someone who obviously did not exist, and it was a fictitious biography of a character from Civil War Britain from the 1600s, and then a group got together to decide they're going to try to contact this guy through the Ouija board. Well, first of all, he didn't exist, but it didn't take long before they were getting messages from somebody purporting to be this Philip, the imaginary ghost. And it got more and more weird as they would sit around and get information, and telekinetic activity would happen in the room. They'd have poltergeist-type phenomena occurring, and it was just a fascinating thing. And finally they had to give it up because it got totally out of control. And I think that's the problem. You get totally out of control when you start relying on the Ouija board. I don't want to get off on this too much, but let me just say this. The problem with the Ouija board, I think, primarily, is that you don't know what you're getting. You don't know where it's coming from. Yes, suppose it could be an external entity. That's one aspect of it. But I think far more dangerous is talking to yourself and not knowing it and actually starting to create a multiple personality problem. That has happened in situations that I've looked into. Now, I work, as Ed knows, with psychologists as well as parapsychologists. My background is in English literature, so I'm not really qualified to be really treating people with mental aberrations. But I have worked with people who are experts in that field, and they all agree, drop the Ouija board. It's not worth it.
Okay, well, thanks a lot.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you
Bye.
very much. That's as good advice as you're going to get. This is Don. Hello, Don.
Hello, Ed.
Yeah.
How you doing?
All right.
I got one question for your guy there.
Okay.
About Resurrection Mary. The
Okay.
last time you were on his station, you mentioned that she used to hang at Liberty Hall.
I do have one report from Liberty Grove and Hall. Do you know that place?
46 and Mozart.
You know it, huh?
I'm from Brighton Park. I should.
Uh-huh.
My wife lived on that street.
There was a gentleman by the name of Jerry Palis who met a woman named Mary, a blonde there, back in 1939.
Yeah.
And he would dance with her all night long, and then she asked for a ride, and the whole thing played out where she got out by the cemetery, ran across the road, and disappeared. Ed, we've had Jerry Palis on the air some time ago, and Jerry passed on 3 weeks ago. I was at his wake in the South Side. He is now buried at Resurrection Cemetery. He's now out there, of course, with Resurrection Mary. But that was one of the more detailed Resurrection Mary encounters, and it did have to do with Little Black Boy, but, of course, that wouldn't make a good movie, so we have to make it more palatable here for people. And William Peter Blatty based this on information of a case from Maryland. There was a young boy, teenage boy from Maryland. The exorcism took place in St. Louis, Missouri. It was done under the auspices of the Jesuits down there, and it really is based on a real account. Well, to a degree. What Blatty did was to draw from other famous exorcism cases and throw in all the special effects and the levitation. And in other words, there was not one possession case that contained all the graphic, gruesome details that were used in the novel The Exorcist. But yes, indeed, that's how the first case occurred. The boy who got into trouble was dabbling around in the occult in that fashion.
By way of a Ouija board.
Right, and oddly enough, to my knowledge, and I haven't made a totally in-depth study of exorcism and diabolical possession, but my Latin professor at Quigley South years ago was Father John Nicola, who was the advisor on the movie, and who first introduced me to that whole, the original story that was later turned into the novel. Father John certainly certainly put the fear of God in me for dabbling in that sort of thing for that very reason, because you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. So I think that, I'm sorry, the point I was about to make was I think that no one, to my knowledge, has been involved in possession case, an exorcism case, someone who was possessed, I should say, that did not sort of open the door, bring it upon themselves, invite the situation in without dabbling. That's why dabbling can be a very serious thing. Now, I mean, this would happen, once in maybe 10,000 cases of dabbling, probably. But still, it's not worth the price. And it's not so much that I'm worried about people becoming possessed by dabbling. It's just that I'm worried about their mental health and their, their future well-being, their stability here, mental stability, by fooling around with that sort of thing.
All right, my second question is this. A couple of years ago, a close friend of mine and I were talking about life after death. And this is the way he explained it to me. He said that in his opinion, he feels that a person's spirit, their personality never dies. He said, like, for example, Clement, he says, you and I are sitting here in the kitchen right now and we're having a conversation. He says, if somebody were to walk in here and pull out a gun and shoot you, he says, more than likely you would fall and more than likely you would die of physical death. He says, but your spirit would still live on, even though your body would die. What is your opinion on that, about the spirit living on after death?
Well, yes, of course, that's a major belief in most religions, that there is a continuation there like that. And where we start splitting hairs, then where we start trying to define is where does that spirit live on and whether or not contact can be made and so forth, and that's where there's a lot of dispute. But yeah, I think that would be a belief shared by most major religions. Yeah,
to be honest with you, personally, this is just my personal opinion, I feel that a person's spirit does live on after they die of physical death. Of course, I'm like you, I don't know where their spirit goes to. I don't know whether it actually goes to a heaven or a hell, or whether it just simply goes to another world where they just live on and continue doing what they were doing when they were living in the physical realm. You know something that's always kind of fascinated me? Getting in touch with the
spirit of, say, famous individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not one of those who's hung up on Elvis now.
No, I understand what you mean. And you'll love my tours because I love to name drop some of the famous ghosts around and some of the situations like that.
Because, like, for example, if it were possible, and mind you, I'm not trying to be morbid or anything, but you know what? If it were possible, you know whose spirit I would like to get in touch with?
Who's that?
The spirit of the late Sam Cooke.
And, of course, Sam Cooke died a violent death.
Right.
Very tragic thing where he was shot. And
Right.
those kinds of situations often leave behind a ghost story. And, by the way, not to jump off the subject too much, Ed, maybe we want to check out with California. I just remembered they're probably having the annual Houdini Seance this weekend again to try to get in touch with Houdini, talk about a famous person. But at the Roosevelt Hotel out there across from the Chinese Theater in Hollywood, for years now, since Houdini's death, there's been an annual seance out there. And it's another Halloween tradition.
Since you want to reach Sam Cooke, you know that Sam Cooke was a Chicagoan, don't you?
Yes, indeed. Matter of fact, I did a little research on him. I know he was born in Clarksdale, Mississippi, but he was raised here in the city of Chicago.
I even know where his last home was here, if you'd like to know. I'll tell you.
You mean his last home here in Illinois?
His last residence. At the time of his death, he maintained a Chicago. He kept an apartment in a Chicago hotel complex, apartment hotel, at 64th and Woodlawn.
64th and Woodlawn.
Yes, sir.
Tell me something in conclusion before I hang up, because I know there's a lot of other people who have questions they'd like to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Is Sam Cooke buried here in the state of Illinois?
You know, he was killed in Texas.
No. He was killed in Hollywood.
Or in Hollywood, rather. What am I saying? Texas. He was killed in a motel room in Los Angeles.
Right.
You know what? I may be buried here, too.
Because I was just wondering, because like I said before, you know, I'm not trying to show any disrespect to the man's memory, because I looked up to him as a singer, and I still do. In my opinion, he was one of the greatest singers of the 20th century.
I'll tell you why.
But I'm just simply making the point that if it were possible, I'd just like to get in touch with him just to see what he'd have to say.
Well, let me know if you reach him. The reason I know where he lived, way back, my grandparents lived in Woodlawn, and they lived at 65th and Woodlawn, and whenever my grandmother and I would go out for a walk, we'd walk by this beautiful hotel-type building down the block, and I was talking to the doorman in there one day. I was only a little kid.
Yeah.
And it was such a big building, and I said, because some of the baseball players from the White Sox lived in Hyde Park and Woodlawn. So I said, anybody famous live in this building? And the doorman said, well, no baseball players, Sonny, but Sam Cooke, the singer, lives here. So I've always remembered that. So it's actually, it's about a block south of 63rd and Woodlawn, about a block south of there. Of course, I haven't been on that block in a long time, so I don't know if the building is still standing. But
you say 63rd and Woodlawn?
Well, actually, about 64th.
64th and Woodlawn.
It was a triangular-shaped building, and it was a big hotel-type apartment building. Triangular in shape. But I think there was a church across the street.
Usually, people who have died a violent death, is it true that their spirit never really rests, that they, linger on this earthly plane?
Quite a few of the ghost stories that I've looked into involve that. Now, not every person who dies a violent death becomes a ghost, of course, but it is a very common thing for certain ghosts to be able to trace back to such an origin.
Okay.
All right, thanks a lot.
All right,
maybe somebody out there has more information on this for us, Ed.
Okay, if there is anybody out there who can, elaborate on this, invite them to call in. I'd like to listen to what they have to say.
Okay.
All right, thanks a lot, fellas.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clem, for calling AM 1000, The Loop, at 1:25 in the morning. Ed Schwartz with the ghost hunter himself. Richard Crowe is now officially Halloween Day. Carol Amari from Radio Spirits Incorporated. Rich, if somebody wants to take the tour or get in touch with you, why don't you give the data right now? If you want to go out on the ghost tour, if you want to get in touch with Rich, there's a post office box, an item. You still have the phone number, too?
Yes, Ed. Let me give all the information here.
Here we go.
If you'd like to write to me, it's Richard Crowe, C-R-O-W-E, at Box 29054, 29054, Chicago 60629. If you just want to give me a call, it's 708-499-0300, 708-499-0300. In fact, have your credit card ready, and I'll take Visa, MasterCard, and we'll get you on one soon. And Ed, you are long overdue. I got to get you on something here again.
I've been told I'm overdue by any number of people. Any number. So we'll give that data out again in a few minutes for Rich if you want to go, because I know he speaks quickly. He's a man who's always in a hurry. That's P.O. Box 29054. And that's what Rich pouring is the diet soda here. We do not have a washroom in the studio. And the zip is 60629.
I wish I didn't have to do it. You wouldn't either if you didn't have to. But the sooner I do it, the better it'll be. I usually wait until after the holidays, but that's when all the other guys are going to do it. I'm Alan Saxon Paint. I'm running my end-of-the-season clearance now, while my stuff is still fresh and new, and there's still time for you to use it before the holidays. Like Chicago's favorite one-coat paints at $7, $9, $11 a gallon. My best-selling paints, still fresh from my factory. Dumb money could pay twice as much for paints not half as good. Dumb money could pay up to $500 for the same quality room-size rugs I'm clearing out at $59 to $300, none higher. And smart money knows no one carries more mini blinds than Saxon or sells them for less. Every color, size, and style. Aluminum, vinyl, titanium, and more. Now priced from $6, $8, and $10. No matter how cheap I sell them, my mini blinds are guaranteed to fit or your money back. I wish I didn't have to do it. But nobody's buying these days unless you give it away. Smart money knows Saxon's everyday prices are a bargain. But my clearance prices, they're a steal.
Kevin Matthews and Jim Schwartz.
Hi, Jim.
Yeah, hey, Kevin, what's up?
You?
My radio privileges have been grounded at my place of employment.
Really?
Yeah, for no reason, just because they think that your show is not worth it. Don't listen to this stuff.
Oh, who said this?
This guy, Gary. Jim.
You're dealing with an idiot, though, Jim.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah, I'd quit. Why not just say, hey, enough's enough, quit. Thanks, buddy.
Okay, thanks, Kev.
Kevin Matthews, middays on AM 1000.
It's 128. Richard Crowe, Ghost Hunter, and Carl Amari from Radio Spirits, and I've got some good news. Carl brought many more ghostly programs for Halloween than we can play tonight. So he's going to come back next Friday night, and we're going to play them all night, and we'll go until we drop. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, at least a half a dozen more great programs from Radio Spirits Incorporated. So next Friday night, we will do it all over again.
I was talking with Richard about Murder Castle, and that was a lights out story too. Arch Obler, I think, based a story on the Murder Castle in Chicago. So why don't we plan on playing that next Friday?
We're in, absolutely. Okay. We'll tell that story right now. I have a book at home called Murder Castle somewhere.
Oh, I'd love to read it.
If I can find it, I'll look for it.
Okay.
Richard's going to tell us what we know about this fellow. It's been a couple of years since I read the book. We're going back to the time of the World's Fair. And we're going way back now, right?
We're going back right to the Columbian World's Fair.
This would be the one that was held in 1893, I believe.
Right, for the 400th anniversary of the discovery of America.
Yeah, the World's Columbian Exposition, and I want you to try and visualize, if you can, the corner of Wallace and 63rd. There's a post office there now. 63rd and Wallace. Before there was a post office, there was an apartment building there, maybe the most infamous apartment building in all of Chicago. Richard?
Yes, Ed. You know, long before they were tearing down Gacy's house looking for bodies, there was a large apartment complex owned by Dr. Mudgett. And this particular site, it was a real chamber of horrors because there were trap doors, there were chutes here to drop bodies down below into the basement. There were acid vats there to consume the bodies. And this was almost the perfect crime because women would disappear in great numbers. Mudgett would advertise for people in the newspapers and meet these women, and gives you chills just thinking about all those ads in the Reader now sometimes, and you see all the people advertising like that.
Yes.
But back then, 100 years back, many people disappeared, and it was part of the way that Mudgett got away with it was because back then with the World's Fair, a lot of people came here from other parts of the country. There was a transient nature to a lot of people, and he ran this apartment complex. People were coming and going, and nobody could keep tabs. And, you know, you could just say somebody moved away, that sort of situation. Hundreds of people probably were killed. We don't know the precise number. And Mudgett would have committed the perfect crime had he not been caught in another state and was sentenced to death. And on the gallows, admitted to murders, and that's when by that time the police were already starting to tear this place apart, and they found the evidence and just scraps of bone and corset stays and things like that, bits and pieces, relics of evidence that showed that there were large numbers of deaths that occurred there, and the decimation of the bodies in acid.
Was his motive for I guess, to take their belongings? The things that they brought to the hotel?
I don't think anybody was quite sure whether he was a ghoul, whether he was an evil man, or he was committing crimes, in other words, hiding the remnants of his crimes, which was robbery or theft. I think there was more to it than that. I think when a doctor, a man with a doctoral education, does what he did, I think that he must have been a mad doctor.
Certainly a totally amoral situation where this guy just thought he was above and beyond the law and humanity and could get away with anything.
He had a number of pseudonyms, but I guess his legal name was Herman Mudgett, right?
Right, Herman Mudgett was his real name.
And he used to parade around as Dr. H.H. Holmes.
Holmes was his favorite nom de guerre there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think he had a few others, and there are several books out on him, as a matter of fact. I've got another one called The Murder Doctor.
Right, there is a novel. I think Robert Bloch did a novel on him, too, the guy who wrote Psycho, right.
No, I've got the books I have are nonfiction.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, he was such a character, such a huge character that he inspired both works of fiction and nonfiction about him. And, Ed, I do have one ghost story, so to speak, about the place. It's not much, but I received a very interesting letter from a woman some years ago who told me as a young lady that she lived in the area and she could never walk down that side of the street. She didn't know what was wrong with that particular block, but she could never walk on that side of the street. Always had to cross over to the opposite side of the street because of something so terrifying, some feeling that was there. And only after that, years later, did she learn the historical reason that that was where Murder Castle stood, which is now, of course, a post office. We better watch out. We won't get our mail delivered from the south side here.
You know what? I wonder if the people who work in the post office know the history of that street.
I wonder if we've got any listeners tonight who work at the post office and wonder if maybe they've got anything to add to this.
I don't know what the zip code is over there at 63rd and Wallace. It might be 45 or 49 or one of those. I'm not sure.
Well, Arch Obler certainly wrote an interesting play about that, and we should play that next week, Ed.
Okay, let's
I'll bring
do
it
that.
down.
Absolutely. Rich, I can never have you on a radio show without asking you the story about Resurrection Mary, the hitchhiking ghost, kind of your theme ghost. Resurrection Mary, you heard her sung about here in a song a while ago. Resurrection Mary, the hitchhiking ghost. Now, the phenomena of ghosts is I guess, extremely popular when it comes to hitchhiking spirits. I mean, I guess there's more than one community that has
hundreds of hitchhiking ghost stories around the world, indeed. And we've talked before, Eddie, about hitchhiking ghost stories as far back as the mid-19th century in Europe, an Irish situation where the girl, obviously pre-automobile, would look for rides in wagons. So, I mean, these sorts of things, of course, were with us for a while, but, of course, now with the advent of the automobile, it's got a whole mystique to itself, especially when you're driving down a dark and lonely road and you see somebody out there in the headlights and you wonder, should I pick up that hitchhiker? Is it a real person or is it a ghost? There's just something about getting out there on the road at night. And the Resurrection Mary story, I think part of its mystique, too, is because much of it occurs along Archer, south by southwest from Chicago. And you get out there past Justice into Willow Springs and the Forest Preserve Belt, and it really is an atmospheric part of the country to be driving through. A very famous ballroom out that way, the Willowbrook Ballroom in Willow Springs, and a lot of the Resurrection Mary encounter stories have a handle there with the Willowbrook. The Willowbrook is set on the edge of the Forest Preserve Belt, right out there near 95th Street, near Maple Lake, and further down. And great country visually, stimulating, looks like it should be a haunted area. And, of course, one of the more famous stories about Resurrection Mary dates back to January of 1979, and that was when a cab driver who had picked up a fare at the O'Hare Airport, a North Side cab driver, and dropped the fare off in the Payless area, was working his way back, trying to get back to the North Side, and got lost out there in the woods out there along Archer. And it was at 1:30 in the morning, and that's often a very important time for Resurrection Mary encounters. About 1:30 in the morning, he's driving past the Willowbrook Ballroom. It empties out about that time. And at the intersection of Flavin Road and Archer, around the bend, that's where he spots this attractive woman standing at the bus stop right there next to a World War II memorial. And he would stop there, and he would ask that woman if she would like a lift, telling her that he'll give her a free ride if she'll just direct him back to the North Side. So she gets in the back seat of the cab. Off they go. 2 minutes up the road, she says, "This is the place." He turns to ask her what she means. She's no longer there in the back seat. Now, he was so startled by this that, of course, he has to find out an answer. The next day he takes off work. He winds up calling various police agencies, the Ballroom, and he eventually winds up talking to Bill Geist, a reporter with the Suburban Trib, which is published out of Hinsdale. And he winds up talking to Bill, and Bill gets a hold of him, later got a hold of me as well. And Bill would meet with Ralph, the cab driver, and interview him for a long column that he had published back then, shortly after that, in early '79. And Bill told me, personally, he says, I don't believe in ghosts, but I now believe in Resurrection Mary. And I think that that's really a compliment here to this ghost, that she's been so persuasive to some people. They either have the encounter themselves, or they meet someone who has a very intense encounter, and it's a very convincing thing that she is a reality. And of course, the twist to that whole story, too, Ed, is that Bill Geist's last name means ghost in German.
Isn't that
Bill
something?
Geist, Bill Ghost. And Bill, of course, now gone on to the New York Times, and he's a real hot commodity out there on the East Coast. But he got one of his best stories, his biggest stories, from Resurrection Mary.
And that is what we know. That is what we know.
That's often how she pops up, Ed. And I was out at the Justice Public Library just a few weeks back giving my lecture, and have been coming upon some new Resurrection Mary witnesses here lately. And I do have perhaps the most recent Resurrection Mary encounter now is from 90. The summer of 1990. I'll be in touch with these young ladies who were telling me about this out at Morton College here recently. And from what they described, it was similar to an incident that's happened a number of times. They were driving down Archer, headed back towards Chicago. As they approached the main gates of Resurrection Cemetery, suddenly this woman in white darts out in front of the path of their car. And she's traveling from across the cemetery to the cemetery fence side. And they see this, and they're startled by this. They barely miss her. And then by the time she gets to the cemetery fence, she disappears. She dissipates at the side of the road. So it's not quite the same as having her in your car, which is a classic hitchhiking ghost thing. But certainly it's enough to convince many people that, of course, there's something going on out there. And these sorts of things happen year after year out there on Resurrection Cemetery.
It sounds exciting. It does. Then we had a couple of calls that were watching this clock tick down. Where is Dale's been waiting a long time. Dale, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
You're on the air with Rich Crowe, the Ghost Hunter, and Carl Amari is here as well. Go ahead.
All right. Chicago Ed, how are you doing?
All right, thank
you. Good. Richard?
Yes, sir.
The place where I work right now, and I wouldn't call you. I've been calling Ed and you for the last 10 years on the various radio stations you've been on. We feel, me and another fellow, is haunted.
Okay, what convinced you?
Apparitions?
Really?
Yes. We've seen different things. And I mean, at this point, where today is a good example where I turned around and saw something again. This is in Burr Ridge. And
know it well.
Yeah, okay. And it's not something like, somebody would say, you're nuts, you're seeing stuff, stuff like that. But we, on occasions, have actually done a double take to see something, and then there's nothing there.
What have you seen there, if you can describe it briefly?
Well, animals, for one, and people, for another.
Now, when you say Burr Ridge, you don't have to tell us exactly where it is, but is that in that newly built-up area?
If you want to, let's put I'll give you a precise area where it's at.
Okay, well, you don't have to tell us on the air your exact address, but I was just curious if it's that newly built-up area, that Burr Ridge Park.
No, that's not it.
Okay.
All right, let's say south of I-55.
Right.
To 79th Street.
Okay.
Bordering Grant Road.
Okay.
Okay. And this is a warehouse. It's part of a corporation.
Now, you say animals. What did you see in the way of animals?
Coyotes, fox, stuff like that.
I mean, you think these are not real animals? These are ghost animals?
Yes.
Why do you draw that conclusion?
Because they're low to the ground.
Uh-huh.
All right. I worked in shipping for over 2 years. And there were many occasions where I turned my eye and saw something there. And it was like a dog or something like that. Now, I'd say I was nuts or something like that, go from that aspect. But the fella who came into our department after working in our production area saw the same thing. I mean, this guy would come out and yell to me, said, I just saw something again.
This is like in a secured area where there are no possibility of animals getting in.
Yes, absolutely.
New one to me, but I'd like to talk to you more about it.
I'd like to talk to you more about it, too.
Okay.
You know, well, Ed, like I said, I've been calling you for the last, every time that Richard Crowe was on, for the last 10 years, on various radio stations that you've been on, I've been talking to you. This is one that I have to talk to Richard Crowe about and say, hey, here's something that, is really interesting. And neither of us, now this fella that I'm talking about, served 7 months in the Gulf War, lived in Germany, has had experiences with poltergeist and so on. And, he's the guy is not a nut or something like that. Neither am I. But to see something like this, okay? Now, normally when you're concentrating on something and such as orders were pulling out of this stock area, but today, like I said, I'm in inspection now, and to see something behind me, maybe your mind has some, but this has nothing to do with it. Richard, it's time for you and I to talk.
You got it. Please get a hold of me here in the next couple days.
All right.
Okay,
what can I reach you at?
Well, I'll give my number again. It's 708-499-0300.
All right, let me get your phone number again. I got to grab a pencil here.
Okay, I'll give it again here. Everybody else out there, grab a pencil as well. 708-499-0300.
0300.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We've got to take a quick break here. We're fighting the clock tonight, and we'll give you Carl Amari's 800 number if you'd like to get some of the old-time radio shows from his library. So get your pencil out again, and we'll do that in a moment, right here on AM 1000.
My husband, bless his soul, loves music. At least that's what he calls it, music. He sort of goes through these little phases. Last month, all he played was polka with the volume cranked. Germans actually started showing up at the house for dark beer. Then there was his retro disco period. That one ended, however, when in a brief moment of insanity induced by 7 straight hours of dance fever, I somehow mistook the disco mirror ball he hung on the ceiling for a piñata. There was also his Japanese country western collection, his punk music phase. A balding middle-aged man with a torn T-shirt and a mohawk slam dancing in his own living room is not pretty. Trust me on this one. Right now, he's into experimental bagpipe recordings. So, for his birthday, I bought him the CD he's been wanting, Bagpipe Blues Volume 1. I also bought him a pair of Memorex headphones. He loves the way they sound so much, he never takes them off, which, as far as I'm concerned, makes them the perfect gift.
Is it live, or is it Memorex? Dannon has come up with something that will change the way kids think about yogurt with Dannon Sprinkle-Ins. Sprinkle-Ins is a unique real yogurt snack that's high in calcium and a good source of protein, potassium, and riboflavin, plus all the goodness and quality you expect from Dannon. Sprinkle-Ins comes in delicious flavors made just for kids and comes with a separate pack of rainbow sprinkles to mix them any way they want. Leave it to Dannon to get your kids to eat yogurt with Dannon Sprinkle-Ins.
It's a Halloween spooktacular and photo contest at the Chicago Children's Museum in North Pier with a spook house, black cat maze, and treats from Dannon Sprinkle-Ins and Kodak. Contest prizes include museum family memberships from Dannon Sprinkle-Ins and Kodak Star 735 cameras with all entrants receiving a free child's admission. Take a picture of your child in costume with their pets or in special places and bring it to the museum or send it to Spooktacular 60 East Chestnut, Chicago 60611 by October 31st. Dannon Sprinkle-Ins samples and Kodak coupons will also be on hand during the Chicago Children's Museum Halloween Spooktacular.
Hi, I'm Chet Kopic. Don't forget, every Saturday night, 6 p.m. on WMAQ-TV Channel 5. Throughout the football season, keep your eye out for Chicago Bears Weekly. Each week, Chicago Bears Weekly will take an in-depth look at the key plays from last week's game and the final word from the players and coaches. Bears Weekly will also analyze the Bears' upcoming opponents, giving you a look at the keys to watch for before you see that ball game. Also, go inside the Bears' den and visit with a team official on matters concerning the ball club's off-field activities and the many items of interest for you fans concerning the Chicago Bears. Bears Weekly takes you back to one of the greatest games in team history, complete with highlights and commentary from the players and coaches who created those moments. The show will also take you inside a current Bear player's home to meet his family and discuss his life outside of football. Remember, fans, Chicago Bears Weekly, each Saturday night at 6 p.m. on WMAQ-TV Channel 5. You'll be in the know when they tee it up.
Now Lenscrafters presents yet another breakthrough in eyewear comfort, Featherweight lenses. These revolutionary light-as-a-feather lenses are made to fit you better.
I couldn't believe it. My glasses used to weigh a ton. Now they're so comfortable, I hardly know I've got them on.
And only Lenscrafters in-store labs have developed the technology to custom craft better-fitting glasses like Lenscrafters Featherweight lenses in about an hour.
With my heavy prescription, by the end of the day, my glasses used to actually hurt my nose. Not anymore, not since I got my Featherweights.
Lenscrafters exclusive Featherweight lenses.
Finally, no more headaches from heavy glasses. My Featherweights are light as a feather.
Why put up with glasses that weigh you down? Come to Lenscrafters and experience a new level of comfort. Lenscrafters exclusive Featherweight lenses. Better fit for greater comfort. In about an hour.
Announcing, Lenscrafters now matches any competitor's price, and we provide free breakage protection, lifetime maintenance, and 1-hour service. Lenscrafters match any competitor's price.
This Tuesday, AM 1000 urges you to vote. Count on the AM Loop for full day election coverage. Voter information during the Howard Stern Show. Baba Booey. Kevin Matthews with special guest Paul Songus.
Providing my third chiropractor analysis on the erection.
And AM 1000 will keep the political pressure on with Johnny in the afternoon.
This is Mickey Mouse tossed salad.
Call it what you will. We think it's comprehensive. And following Blackhawk hockey, it's Chicago Eddie Schwartz and his trademark Election Day show. Eddie's program is the one that all others are judged by. You could go elsewhere for coverage.
Do I look like an idiot?
We think you should stick with the AM Loop. Just check out our team coverage. Stern, Matthews, Brandmeier, and Schwartz.
These people have no place in a decent society.
Exercise your right to vote. Tuesday, AM 1000.
That's correct. It's Schwartz, Carl Amari, Richard Crowe, our ghost hunter. Carl, if somebody wants to order some programs from Radio Spirits, either some of the tapes we played tonight or the ones we're playing next, we're going to get into Inner Sanctum next week. We've got all kinds of programs. Mitch?
Yeah.
Is this my Abbott and Costello?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's in here. I got it.
Take it out. I don't want to lose that. We got a Halloween show starring Abbott and Costello, and what we're going to do is we're going to next Friday night. We're going to play all the shows we didn't play tonight, right?
Right, and I'll also bring that Murder Castle too.
The phone number, if you want to get a catalog from Carl and take a look at all the great titles, they're on cassette. They're in good shape, and they're great. Here you go.
Catalog is free. Just call anytime, day or night, 1-800-729-4587.
There's 1-800-729-4587, and that is the number, free call for Radio Spirits. You've got a catalog with about 3,000 titles in there.
Yep.
Free of charge, and you'll love it. Okay?
Thanks, Ed. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Carl, don't go away. We're not done. Rich, we still have some phone calls here.
Right.
This is Jerry who's on the line. Hello, Jerry.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. Welcome to AM 1000.
Welcome to you, too. Good
Thank
to have you aboard.
You know, this is our anniversary week. Kathy and I had our anniversary this week, Thursday night. We began our 5th month.
It's great having you with the Loop now.
Thank you. Good to be here. What you got for us?
Just a little story. We're not sure of the connection. I believe my wife's grandmother, her husband's sister-in-law, is that Mary Bergovi, Resurrection Mary. And the only strange thing we know about it is that when my wife's grandmother, her husband died in 1952-53, there was a signature in the funeral book of the Mary Bergovi with her address on Damon.
Right, over there by 47th, right.
Right, with her address, which kind of shocked my wife's grandmother because...
Wait a minute, you mean somebody signed the name and the address after she was dead?
Yes, that's what... She died in, 34?
Now, you have this still?
She's been looking for it because every year we talk about it around this time.
Wow.
And she's been trying to find the book.
Yeah, can you hold on? I'll get your number off there. I'd like to talk to you more about that.
Sure.
That is... So maybe Resurrection Mary showed up at the wake to sign the book, in other words.
Well, wouldn't that be fascinating? All right, we'll put him on hold a minute.
That is a very unusual concept.
Yeah, get that guy's name and address and phone number.
What a concept, Ed.
Isn't that...
honest to God, I'm just thinking, because I was over at Jerry Palis's wake here 3 weeks ago when he passed on. Maybe Resurrection Mary showed up at the wake for him, too.
Wouldn't that be fascinating?
Oh, my gosh. We're going to have to get hold of his son and see if there's any unusual name in the book there.
There you go. We're back on the phone. This is Mitch. Hello, Mitch.
Good morning, Ed. Good morning, Mr. Crowe.
Yes, good morning.
Well, you know, I started out with just one quick question.